somebody who is just a second. Somebody who is not fit and need a loved one to take care of him. In that case, you would need a loved one to book an appointment for the mentally challenged person. So in this case, your user is the loved one and you're treating the mentally challenged. So you should know the difference between the user and who is paying for the fees. Similarly, if you are, say, manufacturing toys for kids, then kids are the consumer and their parents pay for it. So you should be able to differentiate between customer and the user, and you should be able to look at personas. So basically, when you look at personas, that would be something like housewives or college goers, elderly people, kids, teenagers, school goers. So these are few personas that I can think of at the moment. But you can come up with different personas based on your requirement, and you need to be very clear that you ask the clarifying questions, because if you ask the clarifying question, then you and the interviewer are on the same page. Then you need to clarify on the goal, and once you agree on a goal, you can look at the user needs and personas. So there are three facets of product sense. It revolves around empathy, domain knowledge, and creativity. You should know your customer thoroughly. You should understand the sentiments, what he feels, what values are important to him, what apps he uses permanently, what is his customer behavior in different scenarios, and how, and then you should be able to see a big vision. Like you should be in touch with the technologies, and a good idea would be to be abreast with the technology news and the latest technology, and being able to understand how to make a novel solution out of the current technological solutions available. So that is where your creativity comes in. So this is a small way of how do you approach a product sense question. This is there are two ways I have listed the approach. One is like you listen, you ask question, you pause and think, you structure, you explain, you pivot and check in the solutions, and you summarize. This is one simple flow, like just for any, so which even a newcomer or a beginner can or newbie can understand. So you need to understand. So basically, first you need to take a pause and understand the problem that has been given to you. Once you start and give it a pause, you would give a better answer, because so always take 2-3 minutes or 5 minutes to think on your feet and give an answer to a question. And then you ask questions, you think, you structure, and you explain your answer, and then you do the trade-off, pivoting and summarize. So these are few questions that I have listed for your use. So there are three types of product design or product sense questions. First is improve, whether you can improve an existing product, whether you can design from scratch, or what is your favorite product. And then how will you improve Pinterest for that matter? How will you improve Instagram stories? And this is a very newbie kind of a question, which is always interviewers' favorite, which is what is your favorite tech product? And you can design an elevator for a blind, which is designing from scratch. And these are few questions that you can do on your own and practice product design or product sense. So this framework, this is a very easy way of, this is how you should approach the answer, and this is the framework that you have to use. So there are multiple frameworks available. I have talked about the circles framework here, which is very commonly used and which is famous in Decode and Conquer by Lewis Lynn. So you can use this framework, and also if somebody asks you about go to market strategy and metrics, you can talk about metrics and go to market strategy as well. So basically you have to use this framework and this structure, and that way your answer would actually be properly structured, and you can structure your thinking as well. And the more you practice, the better your answer would be. Priyanka, can we do a sample question today?
Yeah, sure, we can.
Okay. So let's pick the first question. How will you improve medium.com? Take time to think about it. I will display the framework, and I hope you have pen and paper, and you can. So the question is, how will you improve medium.com? And the framework to use is this which is in front of you. And we are at 7:15, so you can take 7 minutes to think about it, and then we can discuss by doing a mock session with somebody. Does that sound fair, Priyanka?
Yeah, sure, we can go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, Monalisa, this is Sylvie. Thank you for taking this session. I see you mentioned that something is being displayed. I don't see your screen.
Oh, okay. Just a second. Were you not able to see anything?
No, we saw it in the PPT before, I think, and now it is visible.
Just a second. Okay, so I am displaying the framework so that you can reference the framework and structure your answer. And the question is, how will you improve medium.com? We started at 7:15, so we would assess at 7:25, I think. Just a second, 15. Yeah, 7:25 around you have time, and we'll have some discussion around the question around 7:25. Guys, let me know if you finish earlier and want to share. We can do. We are at 7:19. I think 7:30. The next session would start. So, if somebody finishes earlier, we can start discussing.
Uh, yeah, hi. This is Surya. I can give a small uh, detail. Hello.
Okay, Venkat, you can start
Yes.
while other people can just finish.
Mm.
I
Okay.
am stopping the screen share for now. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one is like when we get a requirement or in a statement. So why do we need to do this? What is the purpose of doing this change? So does the existing one is not working properly, or this or why do this changes want to be implemented in this version? So we need to categorize in these areas why, where, when, what, and how many, all this stuff. Then only the kind of a clear vision will be coming for the medium.com. And the second one is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely right. So first approach is clarifying on the goal. So our goal is that we want to increase user engagement on medium.com. That is our goal. What is your next question?
so the next two question is once we finalize the information based upon the first question, then we will try to see the who are all the users mainly use this medium.com and what are their expectations on the information to be available in the medium.com.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah. So okay, but what I said is like uh, we need to figure out the who all are the users using this medium.com. We need to find out the what are the existing problems which we have, and when we try after clarifying the requirements, once we try to if you want to implement this changes, for example, so what would be the impacts to the existing ones, or the people will can concentrate on the old plus new, uh, or old plus new functionalities or features, or they will be kind of saying that okay, this is something unpredictable, we don't really need to use this kind of features. So we need to get a clarification on that.
Okay, so basically, medium.com, do you know about medium.com, Venkat?
Yes, I'm using it. Yeah.
Okay, so it is a great product. First, so maybe we can first talk about the product, and then we can talk about the users, as you say, and look at major personas. So, as a product manager, what do you think? How will you describe medium.com, and how will you describe how will you describe the persona? These are two things you can give it a try first, and then I'll move to other people.
Yeah. So we will try to create a kind of service with a multiple personas in each category, how the product has been used, how far based upon the analytics and all this stuff, and we'll put a multiple attributes each of the personas and we see a kind of comparative of all the personas, and we'll see how the product can be improved with the new functionality in the medium.com, how the data is visible to the customer, what are the major important items which they're trying to look all the time. So these are the items we will be, I think we can make a decision on this area.
Okay, so but can you describe medium.com, what it is and what are the personas?
Okay, but medium.com is a website where it contains all the information of all the related topics, and for all the categories like more normal, even the scientific, technological information, scientific information, and sports information, arts information. So all the details will be there in the medium.com. That's a way of looking the information in the medium.com, and people will try to upload their experiences also in the medium.com, so that if we follow any of the person, we can look over all the information.
Okay, nice. And then what are the personas, major personas? Can you describe 3, 4 personas?
Okay, so major personas, I will try to categorize all the users in 4 different personas. In the first persona, I will see who all are the users, like only the tech people most of the time. I mean, only software professionals, only those people are trying to access the site and viewing the information and putting some kind of attributes for them, but what type of information they're looking for, and up to how much time they're trying to see that information, and all the looking if we have any kind this kind of kind of personas, will keep it in category wise, and students and housewives or some kind of uh, all these type of personas I'll keep into picture and try to do a research on that.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. That was a good try, Venkat. Uh, Somebody raised hand. I think Vivek raised hand. Do you want
Yeah.
to go next?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Hi. So looking at I never saw medium.com. The moment you said, I just browsed it, and also I've gone through your PPT. So my points here is, probably I will try to understand the vision first. Okay. Uh, uh, and break into strategy and then the tactical things that we need to do, and also the targeted customers. Okay, so looking at the app, what I understood is there are different personas playing a role here. Maybe employees, maybe the ones who want to have a lifestyle, or the people who are trying to get into fitness and all. So there are different personas and there are topics around it. So probably segmenting the customers is one important thing that we can define here, and see how people are reacting to the content that has been shared. Probably the metrics that it can be useful for, and then based on the usage or based on the targeted customers we are targeting, probably we can improvise more content and get aligned as per the user. So what I think is, we should also implement some AI ML algorithms, see how the likelihoodness is playing a big role in the recommendations. So if I am a IT person, and probably I would like to see what is the next gen technologies and what are the high paying jobs that are available in the market, and probably how the IT industry is structuring in the next 10 years or 20 years. Those kind of a stuff I'll be mostly interested, apart from the fitness that I want to check that. So these kind of a things will actually train the models and improve the models, and then suggest the right recommendations to the targeted customers, and then slowly improve the metrics. So that is a quick thing that it came across, and I just wanted to share.
Okay. Thank you. Good try. Hari Om, you want to do a critical analysis of major pain points of the user? Can you go ahead?
Hi, Miss. Thanks for coming in. So yeah, I mean, looking at the goal, the agenda is to improve the user experience of the medium, right?
Right. User engagement.
Engagement. So, I mean, looking at user engagement, maybe we should very clearly define the what exactly user engagement in first, right? So, is it reading the articles? Is it spending more time writing the articles, or what else can be there inside? So, I actually like reading and writing, right?
Right.
So we may want to focus on specific kind of users, and again, we want to look at all the pain points, categorize them into various categories, and looking at which one is the biggest opportunity first. Then we may actually move forward, right?
Right. Vivek, I have one suggestion. Basically, your answer was on these right lines, but basically you have to follow. First, you have to do the user analysis and show the user empathy. And I would suggest for first looking at the user and the use cases, and then moving to the solutions. Yes, AI/ML can be applied, but we cannot mention AI/ML at the first go. That is my suggestion. Uh, uh, so basically, the reason why I shared the framework was that that is the rough structure by which we tackle a design question, and more people. So more you will learn in further sessions, and I think in the next session also you will learn some major points. So basically, when you approach a design question, you are not expected to jump to a solution. You are supposed to look at the user use cases, user needs, user journey, and then think about the solution. That is the only suggestion I have. Priyanka, we can start the next session.
Okay, thank you so much, Mona Lisa. Thank you everyone for participating. So for today's next session, we have with us Siddharth Guru. He is product lead strategic integrations at booking.com. Siddharth has extensive experience of 11 plus years. Earlier, he was working as product manager at Flipkart. At booking.com, he is driving long-term CS capabilities for in-house product and helping the leadership make well-informed build versus buy decisions. As a product manager with strong empathy, Siddharth believes in empowered product teams that build capabilities for the long term while meeting business requirement in the near term. And today he'll be speaking on the topic working with engineering teams to sheep. So he'll be speaking on the topic working with engineering teams to ship great products at a high velocity. So over to you, Siddharth.
Thank you so much, Priyanka, for the nice introduction, and very happy to meet all of you here. Let me start by sharing screen, and I'd appreciate if someone can just confirm that they can see my screen indeed.
Your screen is visible.
Yeah, we can see it.
Super. Cool. Yes, so I think Priyanka introduced me quite well, and way more than how I would introduce myself. What we speak of today is really a big part of what a PM does every day, which is working with engineering. The point is, how do we work effectively with engineering? How do we ship great products and ship them out fast? I like to keep the session interactive. I'll obviously ask you guys a few questions, but I'm also anticipating a few questions coming up. If you have something in mind, please raise your hand, drop a message, or just speak out if you want to ask something. Otherwise, we can always take questions at the end of the session. I'll start with a quick introduction, though I don't think I need a lot because Priyanka has done a great job at that. I started off really in a very different industry. I was working for DRDO, building aircraft engines, helping the country move towards self-reliance. I then did my MBA from IIM Bangalore, where I learned hugely from my peers and my professors. And it was a really changing, it really changed my attitude towards life. Then I started my product career in Flipkart, where I was working on a bunch of products, both around post-sales, post-delivery sort of an experience, and also building a new platform inside Flipkart. And then for the last 2 years, I'm in booking.com in Amsterdam, helping people explore the world better and safer. Today, we'll talk about a different attitude towards product management, especially for big companies, where you really need to think about capabilities which power your products. We'll talk about the responsibilities between product and engineering and what is the overlap essentially. We'll also talk about how do you help your engineers build very well-designed systems. And then a big part of our work is around execution. So how do you optimize execution for speed and efficiency? And at the end of the day, we'll look at the fact that you cannot do everything on your own. How do you really maximize your personal impact to the product? Let's get started on a few things. Please help me with this question. Is there a question with someone? No. This is a question for the audience. We know Uber, we know Uber Eats. How did Uber launch Uber Eats so quickly? How did Uber Eats become so successful, scaled up so much, and how did it end up becoming a gold mine for Uber in 2020? What helped Uber launch Uber Eats so fast? I can't see your chats, so if you are writing it out, I'll prefer you speak it out.
I think Uber's connectivity to the customers has created a major strong point for them to continuously improve their product. So I think that's the main funda that was happened for them to launch Uber and next to the Uber Eats and so on.
Sure, that's a valid point. What else?
Hi, Gaurav this side. So they have a two-way marketplace already working for Uber. So moving to Uber Eats is almost a replica from driver and customer to restaurant and customers.
Sure. That's a very good observation.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah.
Rishit this side. I think before launching Uber Eats, they have done a good study on the two-wheelers. So two motors were already in the very boom with the Uber, and it will give them a better platform to rebuild and scale with Uber Eats.
Sure. Definitely. So all these three things are really valid. I think the closest and probably the biggest factor is that Uber leveraged whatever it already had built. So there was a way for riders and drivers to connect to each other. It expanded that two-sided marketplace onto a three-sided marketplace. So you have eaters, you have restaurants, and then you have riders who can join this thing. So you take the things that you already have and they built a completely new product out of it. We'll talk about another example, and this is kind of related. Amazon launching Amazon Prime Pantry. So Amazon e-commerce obviously is a more warehouse-driven product. The products generally have a very long shelf life. You could a TV does not go bad in a year, right? But on the other side, you have Prime Pantry, which is extremely high frequency. People buy from it like 2 to 3 times a week. They are extremely perishable, so you cannot have an egg or maybe a milk packet which is there for more than a few hours. Amazon did the same thing again. It took its core things that it had, which was around listing products, searching for products, discovery, transactions, fulfillment. It pivoted itself into a different area, which is into hyper-local, perishable kind of a gross market, but it really used the same things that it had with it. You can see a pattern emerging here, how companies have evolved to do more with what they already have. I will end this questionnaire with the last example. There is some company in between, which is hidden, obviously, that has one of the highest average daily time spent compared to any other app on Earth right now. Any wild guesses for what is this one platform that can do everything that you see on the platform on the screen? There's a hint. This is a non-Indian product.
Facebook.
Close, but not yet.
Google.
No, Uber does not do photos and
Google
stuff.
then. Google.
Kind of
Instagram.
close. Okay, another
Is it
hint, it is
WeChat?
not from US.
Is it
Microsoft.
WeChat?
Yes.
Is it WeChat, the Chinese
Yes,
app?
it is WeChat. On WeChat, people spend roughly an hour every day on average. Imagine the kind of engagement that this thing drives. It supports more than 1 million apps, but really at the core of it, there are a few key things that it does very, very well. It supports chats, it supports payments, discovery, account management, and so on. But with those key things, it's able to do so much. What you see is a pattern here where companies build core capabilities and leverage these core capabilities to launch new products, new business models over time. Today, we'll talk about this term, the capabilities, in more details, and we'll try to cover some ground around it. Let's talk about what capabilities really mean and the difference between products and capabilities. We all know what products are, right? We use Facebook, we use Instagram, anything, WhatsApp, Google Photos. These are all products. A product is something, a tool that is helping user solve a problem. It is something that drives value to the user, every user, whether it is a real customer, it is an internal user, it's another business, in anywhere. These products are extremely user facing. They bring revenue to the company, and you really do a lot of iterations on the product so that you can optimize it, make it better, match it with the market, and so on. However, there is something below products which really powers the product. These are called capabilities. These are key things that your business does. Let's take a few examples to clarify this. Let's take example of Flipkart. Flipkart's app, Flipkart's website is a product that you use. The core capability that Flipkart has is about listing products and making them discoverable through a search. It is about fulfilling those products and delivering it to your house. It is about returns and customer support around those products. These are capabilities that eventually power your product. As you can imagine, these capabilities don't change as frequently. You would not say, I don't want search tomorrow. Search will just become better and better every day. So it evolves slowly. Whereas you might see the experience change very drastically from a word, as in a text-based input to a voice-based input. So your product layer can change, but the capabilities are slow in changing. Capabilities are product agnostic, which means I can use the same search to power a grocery search experience. I can use it to do a flight search experience and so on. Then below this capability layer is what we have are the technologies, all the infrastructure that we use, all the databases that is being used, whether you choose a cloud service or an on-premise service, what kind of data layers do you have? All of these bits are really the technology powering the capabilities, which in turn power the products. What it means is that every product that the user interacts with really interacts with the layer of capabilities, and then the layer of technologies behind it. And we as PMs have to think about all of this together. This might seem a bit vague, but let's do an exercise and see if we can really understand what capabilities mean. I will take a very generic customer support kind of a product. So users have a problem, they're reaching out to a set of agents on various channels, and let's see how you build this product. With any product exercise, you always have to be very clear about requirements, and that is where we are right now. Let us say we have the 6 requirements with us. Let's say it is a clear trip, make my trip kind of a product. So we know who the users are. If the users are verified, so we know about them, and they have a flight booking, they should be able to reach a general pool of agents so that they can get their support over call. Let us say there's another requirement that users who are unverified, maybe they don't have an account, but they are logging in through an OTP. and they have a package booking instead of just a flight, they should be able to reach more special agents who can help with flights, with hotels and all of that, again on call. Similarly, a verified users who have an unpaid booking, maybe they just reserved but did not pay or the payment failed, they should be able to reach another set of payment agents on email now, and so on. Then you also have a requirement that every time the user chats with one of our agents, you record the chat, it is logged, and a transcript is sent to the registered email ID. And once the conversation is over, you want a feedback form to be sent. So very simple sort of requirements, a few different types of users, few different types of requirements, meeting few different types of agents, and then you register their contact and you send out a feedback form. Once you've done this exercise very well, when you know this is what your requirements are, the next step is to really find groups of related things. So one thing you can clearly notice that there is a concept of verification of the users. There is a concept of what kind of booking they have. There is a concept of different types of agents. There's a concept of different channels. So if you start grouping this, each of these groups is essentially sort of a capability. You could say that the verification mechanism is a capability. So I need a method by which I can verify the users and figure out if they belong to what category, what kind of user they are they very loyal and stuff like that. There is another capability where I should be able to figure out what bookings does a user have. There's another capability where I can figure out what kind of agents should I redirect them to. So this is how you start looking at patterns in your requirements and seeing what capabilities should exist. Now you can obviously imagine that some things are very complicated here, like routing and figuring out who to send to is complicated. Maybe logging the thing or sending a feedback form is a less complicated capability, but these are capabilities in themselves. Once you've done this, you need to verify that if I want to scale this product tomorrow, if I want to go from flight and package bookings to purely hotel bookings, does this whole setup work or not? So by doing this exercise over and over, you start finding patterns in your requirements, which should be grouped, and you should create capabilities around them. And then each capability can then scale up on their own. This is kind of the starting point towards really building great systems, towards building very scalable architectures for your products. And this is a very different mindset to just building features or optimizing a certain metric. This is really what changes how your product grows. There is the question then comes is, why should we even think about this? Can we not be at the top layer of products, talk about features, about how the experience looks like? Why do we need to go all the way deep so far? I'll refer the three layers that we saw earlier. Products are a summation of your capabilities. If your capabilities are bad, if they aren't well designed, your products will never be able to scale. They'll never be able to give you great experiences. Capabilities power rapid experimentation. So you can change the product layer without changing your capabilities. You can change how you do search without changing how the user experiences search, and so on. It helps you scale up. So tomorrow, if you see that your traffic is growing up, you can just change the technology you use, but your product still remains the same. It helps your team build the right system architecture. This is the point we will look at next. And obviously, over time, your teams would be structured around capabilities. So as you become more of a product leader, as you start shaping up your teams underneath you and around you, you'll see that capabilities really help you figure out what subject matter experts to put in which groups, how a group structured, and so on. Cool. I will pause a bit if people have any questions. Otherwise, we'll move to the next section around system designs.
So one question I have, why don't tech leads focus on building capabilities?
Super nice question. That is essentially my next slide. So I'll not take that question right away.
Okay.
Anything else from anyone? Cool. So getting back to your answer, your question essentially, look at the overall product landscape. On the x-axis, you have on the extreme left business considerations. So considerations about what kind of business should the company do, what do users want, how do we make more money out of those products, and so on. On the other extreme are the technical considerations. What code base to use? Do you want to use AWS or cloud services, or do you want to host everything in-house? What kind of services you want to build? what databases you want to incorporate. So these are two extremes of product thinking essentially. As PMs, we are most accountable for the business considerations part. We are the ones who define what the user wants, what does the business want, and so on. Our accountability gradually reduces towards the infrastructure side, where we are more of consultants there, but not really the drivers of decision. The engineering team's responsibility is the other way around. They are extremely responsible for figuring out what exact code bases to use, what databases to use, and so on. But they are only in a consulting mode when they come to what products to build. Capabilities lie somewhere in between. Capabilities power your products, and the tech powers capabilities. So this is really a place where both the product counterparts and engineering counterparts come together, decide what works best for this product for now and for future. Think of it, let's take an example of a search product, for example. As a product manager, you might want to say that I want users to be able to search for whatever is the, let's say, search on Flipkart. So whatever is the name of the product, users should be able to search with that, just that. The capabilities that a PM would want is matching the intent of what is being typed to what is in the database, making sure that if the user typed in the wrong term, so instead of writing MOBILE for mobile, they typed in MOBLE, we understand that it's more about mobile and not mobile. These are the sort of capabilities you want. So you want intent matching, you want autocorrects, you want some sort of indexation and so on. The tech folks would say that I would want something like sharding, so I can look at millions of listings. I want some other technology which will help me really search very rapidly, very fluidly. So you bring both these perspectives together into this middle layer, and that is how you start shaping up capabilities together. So it is not just a PM responsibility, it is not just an engineering responsibility, it is really shared.
Understood for that. Thank you. Just one small follow-up on that. So essentially, we are talking here that a search is not a capability, but whatever constitutes the search, which is the matching of the text or the prediction of the correct text, or to be able to click on the button and getting the results, that very part would be a capability.
Yes and no. I'll tell you. So the definition of products and capabilities depends on which level you are looking at the product. So if I were to look at Flipkart overall as a product, I would say search, buy, fulfillment. These are three capabilities that I have. But this is if I was the CEO of Flipkart or the CPO of Flipkart. If I were the leader for search as a product, I would look at indexation, retrieval, intent matching, highlighting, these kind of things as capabilities. If I was the PM for, let's say, indexation as a capability, I would look at, I don't know, maybe sharding or so whatever else. I'm not an expert on that, but I would look at even more granular pieces as my core capabilities. So it really, it is a tree of capabilities, and depending on which node of the tree you are in, you'll have a very different perspective to what you're looking at.
All right, thank you.
Cool. Now let's see how to use this sort of an approach towards building system design. Now, as I mentioned earlier, system design is more of an engineering activity, but we as PMs have a very strong role to play in it. Let's look at a few decisions that engineers make while building systems and while defining system architectures. And let's see how we can use our product hat to influence those decisions. The first thing that an engineer or engineering team decides is whether to use a monolith kind of an architecture or a microservice architecture. Now, these are terms you'll probably hear a lot. Monolith is basically one big code base where everything happens. They're very closely tight and so on, closely built and so on. Obviously, as you can imagine, building one thing is very easy. It's quite quick. It's more easy to understand what's happening, what is not. So it's very, very good for bootstrapping. So you're building a new product, you do not know if it will meet your users' needs. If there's a product market fit, you'd probably go with a monolith. But as your product scales, you would want to independently change pieces of your product without affecting the other. That is where this microservice architecture comes in. So you break down your product into very small components. Each of those components is essentially one service. Microservices are great for agility and scalability. You can do lots of tweakings, lots of experimentation without affecting each other. So it is definitely great for scale. 99.9% of all good companies' good products today use a microservice architecture. There are a few very limited options where you see a monolith. But the decision for you here is to figure out how much of an effort you want to build a microservice architecture which is very scalable versus building something which is trivial but may not scale as well. How critical is it for you to go to market immediately and then decide the approach here? Once you've made this decision along with your engineers, the next thing that comes to mind is how do these services talk to each other? So that introduces the concept of APIs. So APIs are essentially user interfaces for systems. So user can, like you go to Flipkart and you make a query and press a search button, you get a list of listings. Similarly, a computer makes a query to a server, puts in some parameters and gets a response. It's exactly the same. So APIs are essentially an UI for systems. There are two types. There is a polling, there's a pushing kind of mechanism, but this is essentially the next step of things. The third aspect is then about observability. Observability is the fact that you should be able to see what is happening inside the system. So there are 3-4 key things. There's availability, which is how there's a probability that a requested action can be completed. So how available is the system? The latency, which is how much time does a particular action take? Throughput is then how many actions can I do in parallel? So basically, think of it as a train journey. How many trains are available? Can I get a train when I want to have one? That is availability. How long does a train journey take? That is latency. How many trains can run parallelly, or how many people can be on a train? Is the throughput. You'll also hear terms like service level, SLO, SLA, and SLIs. This is a whole topic in itself, but essentially you should also be able to measure how your systems are behaving. And that is where the service level indicators, objectives, and agreements come into play. Our role in all of this, which is very important, first of all, is bringing extreme clarity on the requirements for the short term, near term, and the long term horizons, so that engineers can build great systems. You should be able to understand technology choices and its impact on business. You should be able to drive engineers towards optimal solutions and making the right choices. You will not probably make those, but you'll drive them towards that. And then really prioritizing time spent on decisions. Some of these decisions are really trivial. You can really change the way an API works. You can really change the way something else works. And these are not irreversible decisions. So don't spend too much time on this. Make a decision, move ahead, figure out if your product works or not. Cool. That brings us to the end of the second part. We'll start the next part, which is around managing execution. This is where we'll cover more about sprints and how to maximize your efficiency. I'm sure you would have learned a lot about sprints, but I'll quickly tell you how a sprint typically operates. We as PMs, we create something called product backlog. This is your entire wish list of things that you want your users to get. Prioritized in terms of impact, criticality, and so on. Now, a product backlog could have thousands of entries. There is absolutely no limit to how much it should have. But obviously, more than a few tens, more than a few hundreds, it becomes really impossible to manage them. Anyway, from the product backlog, you take up the top few key things that you want to do in a sprint. A sprint is usually a 2-week sprint, but depends really on your team. The Scrum team, along with the Scrum team, which is the engineering manager, a set of developers, maybe even designers and so on, you figure out which of these is really achievable within that sprint. And that is what you call the sprint backlog. So out of 100 items in the product backlog, you took up maybe 20 for the planning. And of that, 10 were committed for the sprint. The teams then would work on those 10 items for the entire 2 weeks or whatever is it, sprint's duration, meeting every day for 5 or 10 minutes, doing something called the daily scrum, where you talk about how things are progressing. Once the 2-week period is over, you do a sprint review, where you look at what percentage of those tickets were completed. Do they meet the right quality that you expected out of it? Now, with all of that done, is an iteration of your product ready to be shipped. Not every sprint really results in a releasable product, but ideally that is how it should work. After the review, you also do a retrospective where the team talks about what went right or wrong in their entire sprint. The objective here is to figure out avenues for improvement. So you take those improvement areas and then incorporate your planning. This is how, by doing this loop over and over, essentially you become more efficient in driving execution. You become more reliable in the timelines that you commit to. You get a better visibility into how the team is performing and so on. I will then have a question for all of you. When would you call a sprint ideal? Is it if you are releasing products very quickly, very frequently? Would you call the sprint ideal if you are launching codes with 0 bugs? Would you call it ideal if the sprints are shipped on time? D, would you call a sprint ideal if everything that you picked up in that sprint is completed? Or would you consider it ideal if your metrics moved very significantly in that sprint? This is a question for the audience, so please feel free to tell me what options you think. What option do you think is the most clear representation of an ideal sprint?
If all the tasks are completed.
Sorry, I didn't get your voice.
If all the tasks are completed and whatever was planned is achieved close to 100%.
Okay, that is a good thing. That is a good target to have for the sprint, but purely from a sprint definition point of view, it is not necessary to complete all the tasks in the sprint.
I'm sorry. So I have a question on similar lines. By the definition, the sprint seem to be having a set of tasks that need to be actually items from the backlog, right? That need to be completed within the time frame. So isn't it about the tasks? The given sprint is one sprint is about the 10 tasks it was taken, right? No.
Yes. Yes.
So success metric has to be like if we are able to complete all the tasks,
Yes, so that is a good way to look at your sprint's efficiency. That did you complete what you did? But that is not really the goal of a sprint, to complete what you took. I'll tell you why this is not a goal. If you start measuring your sprint success based on how many tasks you completed, you are incentivized to break down one task into many subtasks, very trivial subtasks, just to increase the number of tickets you complete. Or you are also incentivizing your engineering team to commit to lesser number of tasks so that they can definitely complete it. That's why you should not have a completion rate as your key metric, because you might unintentionally drive a wrong behavior through that. Okay,
I'm sorry. So that why I gave that pointer was because we talked about sprints. If we talk about the feature success, it would be very different metrics we will track, right?
Sure. Yes, definitely. A feature success is based on the metrics that it was supposed to drive.
Right. So yeah, help us understand like which one.
Sure. Now, this is a more theoretical answer. The answer is if your increments that you had planned are shipped on time, you know that the sprints are ideal. The objective of this whole exercise of running sprints is to bring in more predictability into your outcome. So you should be able to say that given this list of backlogs, given the scope of the backlog, it will take me X number of sprints to get there. Now, whether you complete all the sprints exactly as planned, or you have 2 of the sprints which were extremely great and 2 which were extremely poor, but you still end up covering meeting that predicted time, that is what defines the success of a sprint mechanism. Now, this is coming from the agile methodology description. It's slightly difficult to digest, but if you practice this consciously, you'll see that it really makes sense. All the others that we have here, frequent releases, code written with 0 bugs, tasks are completed, metrics move strongly, are definitely good to have. This is definitely your aspiration, but if only one of this is done, you would not say that your sprint is ideal.
Siddharth, one more question on similar lines.
Yeah.
When you say increments are shipped on time, so I want to understand that more. It's like you said it is about bringing the predictability, right?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
Can you talk about this with an example?
Okay, let's talk about, let's take 2 products here. Let's say the app experience on Swiggy, where the way you are able to discover restaurants. there's a new feature that the PM for Swiggy wants to introduce, which is you can maybe search by your voice or search by your location, for example, which let's say it never existed. So you can look at restaurants within a 1 kilometer range. Then look at another product, which is, let's say, Windows 12 or Windows 11 is coming up, right? Let's say Windows 11. That is a product in itself.
Right.
Now, Windows 11 takes 3 years to build, but it has to be launched on the day that it was promised, because there's a whole audience around it. The nearby product on Swiggy probably takes 2 sprints to build. If you delay it by a week or by another sprint, it really does not make a lot of difference. There is a loss of business, obviously. There's a reduction in the metric you could have moved, but it will not affect the business very strongly. Now, iterations on Swiggy, for example, can happen very frequently. You will release features every 2-3 sprints. Iterations on a Windows product happens once every month or maybe once every quarter. So different products have different life cycles with which they release iterations. Hence, it is good for us to measure the predictability of those interactions, of those iterations, not on the number of those iterations.
Can you repeat the last line? Predictability of the...
So any number of iterations that you might have within a time frame, it is good to be very predictable around when you would release that iteration, rather than counting the number of iterations you released.
Okay.
So I might say I'll release 1 iteration every year, or I might say I'll release 12 iterations every year. But if you're able to predict that exactly on the 31st of the month, you are able to ship an iteration, that is successful. Or if you're able to say that on December 31st every year, I'll ship 1 iteration only, even then you are successful. It just depends on the product context.
Okay. What I understand is that you're saying maybe if we are able to follow the roadmap.
Yes, kind of, yes.
Okay. Sure.
The roadmap is also a big discussion point. Roadmaps are supposed to be very accurate for the next quarter or so, but the further down you look ahead in the roadmap, the more fuzzy it becomes. But that's a good way of looking at it. If your sprints are able to align to what the roadmap was, then you know that your roadmap was well thought through and that your sprints are being executed very well.
Sure.
Cool. Any more questions on this? If not, let's move ahead. We were talking about predictability right now. Let's talk about what reduces predictability. Now, there are many reasons. I have listed the top 5 that come to my mind. One and the biggest thing that I've observed is around lack of clear requirements. So we start off with a backlog item, which is kind of fuzzy. In this example, we could say, introduce nearby search on Swiggy. Now that absolutely has zero meaning as a requirement. You need to have very clear description of what the requirement means, that I want users with location on to search within exactly a 1 kilometer distance, radius, and so on. If you don't do this well, your dev team or designers will spend a lot of time discussing these clarifications, making course corrections. They'll build something that you didn't want, and so on. So you'll just waste time around it. The second part is around improper planning. This is a joint effort again. Probably you did not anticipate how complex a thing is. Probably the dependencies were not known, and so on. The third thing which often occurs is around concurrent design, development, and testing. So within the same sprint, you took up a design task. You also took up the development of that design piece and then test it out. So if one thing is delayed or one thing is slow, everything else is affected. The fourth thing is around unplanned dependencies. This is not really a lot you can control, but you should be aware of what any feature might, the dependencies of a feature on other things. And that is where you should be aware of it. For example, the nearby location, you should know that Swiggy would require a location access. So you need to work with the app core team to figure out how to get location access for your users. And then the last point is around unexpected task complexity. Some things are way more difficult than you might have predicted, and that is completely natural. As your systems become more and more complex, the complexity really increases over time. It's a vicious cycle, essentially. There are many more reasons, but I think these are the top few things. Let's look at how we can reduce this kind of predictability, how we improve this kind of predictability. First step, clear requirements. This was very clearly talked about in the previous session as well. As a PM, you need to be very clear about the vision and goals not just for the product itself, but also for that specific sprint. What do you want to achieve at the end of the sprint? Clear user stories. A typical pattern I follow is, as a user, I want to do this so that I can achieve this. If it is very clear and very granular, you know that the developers are working on exactly the things that really matter to the users. Third is having a set of acceptance criteria. Now, this is kind of similar to user stories, but a little more detailed. So it would say that if I, as a user, search for a property for a restaurant in this time, I should find this. If there are no restaurants found, I should return a screen which says nothing found, something like that, much more granular. And this is more for the testing team to really test out real use cases and see if the product works well. Third, have a bunch of wireframes or designs, whichever works best. Do not skip the edge cases. Typically, the most time is spent around corner cases, edge cases. Talk about how the things work, interact, and so on. The next way to improve velocity is through sequencing activities. So ideally, for everything that the dev is working on in that sprint, everything should be ready before that. Imagine a situation where you have a designer with you, and then you have a set of developers, and you are designing something on the app. So in sprint 1, you are really looking for what you want to deliver in the third sprint, which is 2 sprints ahead. Hopefully, you will complete your product research, your requirements in sprint 1, so that for the same bit, the designers can start designing for the next sprint in the current sprint. So in sprint 2, the designer is really working on product increment 3. And then the developer can work on product increment 3 in sprint 3. So you need to be at least 2 to 3 sprints ahead of what the designers and developers are working on. So by sequencing them well and enough in time, you can really make sure that there are no blockages, there are no bottlenecks through the whole process. Cool. This is a lot to assimilate in one session. I just end the session with one set of thoughts around how do you maximize your own impact. You cannot really do everything about the product. You cannot focus on the requirements and the development and system design, all of it. US PMs are hired specifically for product discovery and also for execution. So spend a lot of time in product sense, product design, product market fit, understanding your users, all of that. Focus very clearly on the why and what of your product. Know the how of it, but don't get lost in it. Leave that to the designers, leave that to the developers to figure out. Trust the team. Thirdly, don't get too much involved in project management. We as PMs will always have to do project management, but don't get too engrossed in it. Don't make that the biggest chunk of your work. Do a lot of data analysis, be very clear about the numbers, but don't get stuck in that paralysis of getting numbers and making sure you're taking every decision correctly. The last bit is around trivial decisions. Take things which can be really reversed very quickly. Don't spend too much time on it. Focus more on the strategic bets. And then use a lot of communication. I cannot stress this enough. Frequent and comprehensive communication is the best way to keep everyone on the same page within your team and outside your team. If you do this, you'll end up spending a lot more time on the product work and not less time on the project management or anybody else's work. And that way, you can really drive more impact to the product overall, to yourself, to your own career, and to the company overall. I will end the session here, and I'll open up the forum for thoughts and questions around the thing.
Hi, Siddharth. Okay, thanks, Siddharth. This was a really good session. But it just got me thinking about, the different types of personas that we have in any organization, that is product owner, product manager, and business analyst, and of course the scrum masters as well. So like out of these 4, or essentially the 3, product manager, product owner, and business analyst, how would you differentiate in terms of the primary areas of focus each one should have?
Sure, that's a good question. First of all, the term product owner is kind of going away from the market. We have product managers mostly. Earlier, when there was when these 2 roles really existed as 2 independent ones, a product owner was more focused on execution. So he or she would take the product backlog and then make sure that it is executed at the highest efficiency. The product owner did not have a lot of say around what is built, why we're building something, how to move the matrices. The other side of that was product managers, but they would really look at what the customers want, where there is more revenue to be made, how to what kind of things are to be built and so on, and they look very little at the execution. Given that these two roles are no longer very disjoint, you would have PMs looking at both the sense as well as execution parts of product. Depending on where you are in the product career, if you're just starting off, you might be more involved in the execution. If you become a senior PM, maybe a group PM, you'll spend a lot more time on the product execution and stakeholder management, product sense and stakeholder management than on the execution. The third role you mentioned was around business analyst. I think they are a very strong, sort of a right hand to the PM. They give you all the right matrices, all the right insights into how your consumers are behaving or what they want. They are kind of close to the product manager's shoes, just that they're very far away from the execution. So they are all the data guy, the metrics guy, the why sort of guys. Does this answer your question?
Yes, it kind of does. Actually, in my organization, I'm playing the role of business analyst as well as product owner. So all the things that you mentioned is what I've been doing, but yes, very less of thinking from the user perspective and more of execution is what that is.
Yeah, so I can anticipate that as a product owner, you are doing a lot of execution, but as a business analyst, you should be able to have a lot of the customer thinking, maybe not directly speaking to the customers yet, but at least in terms of how they behave on your platform, getting those insights. You're already doing a lot of things.
Yes, analytics. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Thank you. Siddharth?
Hey then.
Hey, Siddharth, I like this analogy of the capability, that the three deck way of looking at it. So one of the challenges I faced is I'm not in a product company, but in a services company, working as a product manager for a retailer. So in our company, we have to keep on hopping between kind of domains and industries. So of course, the technology also changed, right? So one of the challenge was this, the capability part, right? We know what happens with the customer, the empathy and all this part, but the underlying capabilities, basically, you need to be very close to a platform. And at times I felt like, as a not so very hardcore tech guy, I found it very tough to kind of get to the meat of what are the capabilities. So any sort of any experiences from you where you were able to kind of crack open that? Because sometimes you just can't just go and bug the tech team also to know what are the capabilities that we can drive. So, and any sort of insights into how we can also kind of get kind of comfortable in that.
Sure. So I think this largely comes from practice and also from reading a lot of how things have operated. So I'll advise you on a lot of, so you should look at engineering blocks from the big companies, from all the FANG companies. They talk a lot about how they're building these core capabilities inside the company. But beyond that, when you look at any product problem, the product problem is the why of what you're doing, right? That is very clear. Look at what all do you aim your product to be able to do, what all you aim your users to be able to do. Those whats are essentially capabilities. You mentioned about the retail industry. In any retail industry, there are a few key whats. One what is listing, one what is pricing, good pricing, one what is fulfillment, inventory management, and so on. So these are essentially the key capabilities that you would have in any retail business, whether it is e-retail or brick and mortar retail. Now, how it is implemented, which is the how part, is when it comes to technology and platform and code and all of that. You really don't need to bother a lot about it, but think about commonalities between the whats across various industries. I'm kind of giving you a very vague answer, but this is really it comes more by experiencing it and trying out few things. Maybe if you want, we can take a quick example and see how you would break it down into a capability. Do you want to do maybe, let's say, WhatsApp as a product and see how to break it down into capabilities?
Yeah, sure. Maybe we can take a retailer only, right? So something like listing, like search is one of the things, right? And on the other side, there's fulfillment, which is the what I understand is, so where I find it tough was, like, we know there's a order management system, which is actually the backbone of that, right?
Yes, so, but that is not a capability. order management system is a system. It is part of the tech layer.
Mhm.
What you are talking about as a capability is order management. That is a capability.
So I've been able to, like, usually I look at the journey and then I try to look at the smaller use cases behind that.
Yes.
So now question I always ask is like, is this something the OMS can try to, can be fulfilled through the OMS? So that kind of questions, that's where I kind of get stuck, and then I'm dependent on some of my colleagues. The capabilities, I understand that, like you rightly put for Flipkart, right? Search, listing, ease of findability, right? Those things, and intent, all those things. I'm just thinking in terms of, sometimes I feel like, when you're in a engineering-led company or product, but engineering is equally as valued in the company, right? So sometimes as product managers, a little bit of lack of knowledge will put you in a back foot. So that's what I was trying to see. Is there anything that we should do differently to be at least more effective?
Yeah, for sure. No, so in most of the product and engineering companies, both product and engineering have an equal role to play in this process.
Exactly.
So when you talk about OMS and you want to see if a new use case fits into the OMS, what you can think about as a product manager is whether the user action or the system action is closely related to what the OMS already does, like order management as a capability, whatever it does. Is this new use case related to it, or it is not related? And you should be very clear about why you think it is related or not. Let us say you want to you want to persist the user's purchase history for 10 years, and let's say it just vanished today after an order is fulfilled, and you want to persist it. You can already see that it is very closely related to the order management. If you take something else, it might be very distant away. So in your mind, be clear about why you think this fits into that capability or why it does not. Have that rationale, and then use that rationale to drive conversations with your engineering. Your engineering might say that, no, these are technically very different things, so they don't fit together. Then it's yes, then it's not the same capability. You do not have to be right all the time, but you just need to have a rationale to begin with.
Sure. Okay, maybe I'm just sometimes I think, like you said, just bogged down with the how part a little bit. Probably, I need to get out of that. Probably.
Yes, exactly. I did the same mistake in my initial days. I was too deep into the how that I forgot to look at the why and the what's, and that is what I was really hired for. I was not hired for the how. I was hired for the why and what.
Sure. Thanks, Siddharth. Yeah.
Siddharth, this is
Hey.
Atul here.
Hey.
I have a question on that sequencing part, right? So how it is different from traditional waterfall approach, right? We are just rewording the things that we are doing some sort of thing in a particular sprint, but if we look it holistically, it looks like old beautiful way of doing design, analysis, testing in different phases. So I'm just wondering how it fits into sprint kind of thing.
Sure. Now that's a very fair observation. I'll tell you the difference between traditional waterfall and this sort of agile. In traditional waterfall, what you would have done is spent, let's say, a few months only designing, then a few months only developing, and then a few months only testing, right? And that is where at the end of the day, you know that what you built after 9 months is not really what you wanted 9 months ahead. Over here, you're looking at a much smaller time horizon. You are looking at one sprint of design, one sprint of development, one sprint of testing, maybe half a sprint of testing. So you have really condensed that 9 months time period into a 1 month sort of a time period. Your requirements are far less likely to change at such high in such a small time frame. You still have all the flexibility to go around because you're spending only 2 weeks on a design. You are not looking at a very big change at any point of time. You're looking at a small change, which you can test and figure out at the end of 2 sprints. So it is not really that waterfall. It is somewhere in between. It helps you unblock dependencies, but it still gives you that agility that you were missing with the waterfall approach. And in my drawing, I very clearly separated requirements, design, and development, making it look like 3 sprints. But in reality, you'll probably have this at much smaller bits. So one of your tasks will not run for an entire sprint. So one task should not take 2 weeks of one developer. which means the design for that task also will not take 2 weeks for one designer. It should not take you 2 weeks to write just one task. So the timelines are really are much smaller than what I showed in the drawing. The drawing was more to drive the concept of sequencing.
Right. But still it's a phased gate approach, right?
Yeah.
Though it's a 2 week or 1 week, but still it's a phased gate approach. So, I mean, on top of it, why can't we do, let's say, dual track agility kind of thing, like what Marty Kagan, other folks suggest, J pattern, right? You have a discovery track with PM and group of PMs, let's say team of PMs doing that, and then your delivery team executing those things which you are feeding forward to them.
Yeah, that is also an approach that some companies follow, where you have a discovery track and you have an execution track, and sometimes the resources are shared across both. So you need a PM in both of these, you need a developer in both of these. Maybe the design is only in discovery. That is a good approach to begin with, but there are a lot of publications around the fact that you are no longer able to predict how much time does discovery take, how much time does execution take within a sprint. You might spend a lot of time debating on the design, leaving very little time for development, or vice versa. So if you don't time box it, it becomes a little messy. But there is no published literature which says that one of them is better than the other. They are both good in their own format, and you need to figure out what works best for you as a team.
Makes sense. Thank you.
The other thing to consider there, Atulya, is that there might be other teams which are not as flexible. For example, let's say operations or legal, they are not as agile as you want to as your designers or developers. So if you have to take a legal clearance for something, you need to plan for it way ahead, and hence the sequencing might also be influenced by such kind of considerations.
Absolutely. I mean, working in financial institute, I can totally relate with that.
Yes. Yeah. Super. Any further questions? Otherwise, I'll request Priyanka to take over.
Hi, Siddharth. I have a quick question. The question is on the line of sprints and backlog the tasks, right? Each item is basically a requirement which needs to be defined clearly as probably a PRD, right?
Yes.
Now, but one PRD may be huge also. It can contain a lot of details, right? Now, the question is around how do we divide the PRD into tasks?
Sure. That is a very, very good question. So if you're building a new product, your PRD definitely runs into pages. One easy way of doing this is, in your PRD, don't structure your PRD in terms of user stories, first of all. So instead of saying that so there are two ways people write PRD, actually many ways, but two of the ways that I've seen are most common. One is around capabilities of systems. So here are the requirements for order management. Here are the requirements for search. Here are the requirements for fulfillment, for example. The other angle to it is writing user stories. So as a user, I want to do this and get this. I prefer the second one because each of those user stories typically is a task for the backlog. And it also makes your thought process very, very clear. The developer could just pick up one of the user stories, look at everything that's inside the user story, and then execute on it. So if you do it well, one user story should relate to one ticket for one sprint, but sometimes it's not that straightforward. It could be one or more tickets, one or more subtasks, or spread over a few sprints.
Sorry, so each user story can be a PRD.
So a PRD has a lot of user stories. Each user story is a task in the backlog.
Okay. So the PRD should basically be divided into user stories, and that will be each task probably on the.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have another question on the lines of the software development life cycle. When we do the PRD writing, then planning, prioritizing, sprint execution, and later phases of this. Right? How do we judge the quality? I mean, sorry, not quality, success of each stage.
Can you repeat the question? I'm just trying to understand the question better.
Sorry. So there are multiple stages of software development lifecycle. Right? Now, how do we judge the success or failure of each stage? So it's like PRD. You thought about the particular sprint execution, right? In very deep depth. Now I'm talking about the phases before that and after that.
Sure. Okay. I'll reverse the question back to you. How would you say that a PRD that you have written is good or has met its requirements, the requirements of the PRD essentially?
Okay, this is difficult.
No, it's kind of straightforward. Think about it. Why did you write a PRD at all?
To explain my requirement to the stakeholders.
Exactly. So if your stakeholders are aligned on the PRD, if it is not approved but agreed upon by everyone that will that is impacted by that PRD, you know that PRD has been successful.
Right. Okay.
That is one step. So you so evangelize your PRD, give deadlines for your stakeholders to read and comment on it, so that there has to be pressure on them to review it, right? Take your PRDs to your key stakeholders, maybe your product peers, your manager, your engineering lead, your designers, and so on. If everyone is happy, you know that the PRD is successful. The second thing around execution that we talked about, that the measure for success for a sprint is predictability. So if you are able to predict how much you can cover in a sprint and you are able to really achieve that predicted quantity or quality, then you know that you've made the execution pretty well. Overall, if you look at how you are doing this to move some metric for your product, right? You are trying to deliver some sort of value to your users, that you can measure through metrics over time. If sprint on sprint, your numbers are moving up or going down in whichever direction they were supposed to go, you know that your product overall and all of these bits have achieved success.
Sure.
Thank you, Siddharth. And so we are taking questions. So I would also request Mona Lisa to join in. So, we can, both of you can take questions.
Definitely.
And I got a question from Ananya. So we can start with this question. And guys, if you want to ask your questions, you can, open your mics and cameras and you can go ahead with that. So Ananya is asking, how can we have a transition from profile making products to a profile managing products?
Actually, I want to say I was a bit confused with the timeline. So I thought the session was for half an hour. So there was some confusion there. So I thought I was delaying Siddhartha. So so that is why I wrapped up earlier. So you can. So what should we do, Priyanka?
More or less, you should never give a PM more time. They will always take away time and resources that you have.
So yeah, actually we can take questions. Do you have anything else to share?
No. I wanted to say I'm kind of good unless there's a specific question for me. Maybe more or less I can answer the questions that we have in the chat.
Yeah. We can take questions and you both can take whatever audience wants to ask. So yeah, we can go ahead with that. So Mona Lisa, are you good with that? If we ask questions, you both can, answer.
I would want to spend a bit more time on the case approach. I think that is something that we wrapped up in a hurry because I wanted to ensure that Siddharth has ample time. So basically there was some confusion there. So I did not take questions also at that point of time. So so if we can continue the case, that would be helpful.
Yeah. So can we do that, Siddharth, if it's okay with you?
Yeah, completely. Whatever suits the audience and whatever suits all of you.
Yeah, please, then we can go ahead, Mona Lisa, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so let's brush up people's memory a bit here. So we were talking about the circles framework of approaching a problem, and we reached till reporting customer needs. Can somebody wants to take a stab at user pain points and customer journey for improving the medium.com?
Yeah, Monan, just to talk in terms of, so I had used Medium as a contributor also. So just this is maybe this in my perspective. Can you hear me properly? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you properly.
Yeah, so first things first, I was just looking at how Medium is, how customers are like as a customer engagement platform, right? So we have different, I think other participants have mentioned like who are coming in. So we will have guest users who might be coming through some search channel, or there might be dedicated contributors or influencers who want to make sure they keep writing and then spread the word for different purposes, like building a brand or building more knowledge management things. So in that sense, so we can have different segments of for passive users or active contributors, active readers. So that is one way to look at it. But when it comes to the question around media, like Medium or improvement area, some of the things which I could think of is like the findability of articles, right? So today, when we look at the platform, there is a lot of things being written there. So probably the ease of finding things from a search point of view is something definitely Medium can improve. So today, when you go into the home page, it shows up. These are the trending topics. Maybe those are all for a guest user. Probably it makes sense. For a logged in user, we could make it more relevant to whatever their interest area they had picked up. And for guest users, probably instead of showing everything, probably they can say go with some sort of navigation where you can see what are the areas under which the articles are currently present, so that it's an easy navigation. So rather than just showing all the things at them and then probably asking them to go out of to a different source. So findability and searchability is something which I would say a great improvement for them when it comes to the current state of the site.
Okay, good try. I must say that you got a very prominent weakness at the medium.com, because if you would have tried, then if you will Google something, then Medium gives a better result instead of medium.com search. So that shows that Medium search needs a lot of improvement. That is there. But this is one of the key areas that we would cover in solution mostly. But what I was asking about is, can somebody take a stab at customer needs or a persona, and then we can proceed in a sequence, like basically I'll give an example. Like as a customer, as a student, like I am say an MPhil kind of a student, and I have interest in philosophy, then I would need help in my homework, and I would need I want to read what people are talking about philosophy on medium.com, and I want to be educated on philosophy, right? And then as a person or somebody who wants homework help, that is one need, right? That you need homework help, or that you need to learn some certain topic. So maybe this is one of the need that I have identified, that you need homework help, or you need help with studying a topic. In that scenario, can somebody define for that need, can you define a solution?
I thought
I don't
the search part was probably an overarching thing, right? So regardless of the persona, right? So whether it's somebody as a scientist or a MPhil student, searching the content is some of the one of a must-have capability on the platform, I would say. Are you talking when you say solution? Are we gonna say? Are we talking in terms of design of something? How do we search for it, or are we just here to just call out the gaps in the existing experience?
No, so basically what I want to drive at is that whenever an improvement question is asked, then you need to find and you are asked how will you improve it, right? How will you improve medium.com? And you say ki you will improve search, but how will you improve the search? What is your solution to the search? How they should do it better? What are the gaps?
Sure.
Yeah.
So one of the, I mean, somebody was talking, but I'll just finish first. So one of the main idea was like a faceted search, right? So Medium has their content, and they are also doing actively tagging their content. So if they can come up with a navigation for going by the content type or content area, that will be one solution I can say. So just like how do you see in Amazon, right? So you go to the main menu and you can list down what are the departments, right? In the same way, we can say what are the areas, whether it's technology or whether it's music, art, science. So that is one way I would say like a solution that we can envisage from a design perspective.
Okay, that was a good take at it. Thank you so much. I think we should talk to more people now.
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. Just a second. Mona Lisa, your screen is not visible. I think it's stuck. Can you reshare?
Can you try now?
Actually, no, it's not visible.
Now?
Is it visible for anybody else? It's not visible for me.
No. I suppose there is some internet issues at Mona Lisa side because it's
okay.
Yeah, it just says has shared the screen.
Okay.
Actually, I have your presentation. I can share the screen. You can go ahead with discussions. Just
is it visible now? I tried again.
No.
No, it's not visible. I think you guys can go ahead with discussion. I'll share the presentation in just 2 minutes, if that's okay with you.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Priyanka.
So to answer your question, Mona Lisa, I want to give a try that if in Medium, they will use the user profile and they matches with what he is searching, then they might be able to take their search to next level. For example, if a engineer search a keyword X and an art student or a businessman search the same keyword, there might be some different result should come because their objective of searching should be different.
So you are saying that we should ask the user to fulfill some, so we should ask the user certain questions, and based on that we should create a profile, and then based on that we should start searching, right? So basically, if it is an engineer, if it's a working professional, or it's a data analytics guy, or so based on that you create a profile based on certain questions or facets, and then based on that you give the answer, right?
Correct.
Can you think about something on the vision side, like how can you imagine a medium in 2040? And this is a question to all of you. Like for now I can say that I can take the profile, but what if you don't have technology restrictions, you don't have engineering resources restrictions, then what would you think of it in a futuristic sense?
It could serve as a library for all the articles ever published.
Yeah, that is a good point. But think more on the technology side, that how will you harness technology to make it better?
So whatever a person can think, it comes in a search in medium. If we are talking about 2040.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. So yeah, so basically, and then the apps would give away to wearables, and wearables would be in sort of lenses, or maybe you would have some sort of a mind reading kind of a device where you can read the mind, and somebody has thought about something and the answer is just on the screen or even transmitted to the brain, maybe for that matter. So these so why I'm talking about these futuristic things is because sometimes there are the questions are that how would you improve a product and for make it suitable for 2040, or they can ask you that what would future look like for say autonomous vehicles, and and how would say a Facebook evolve in future. So whenever you are preparing for product design, there should be your vision should be very accurate, and it should be very encompassing. It should not be limited.
Sure.
Okay, so let's do something else. Let's do so because people have a problem understanding personas and user needs and user stories. So let's look at the personas in certain questions, and then we can. So I can frame small cases out of the questions, and then that would help you to understand more. Just a second. Okay. So the next question was, how will you improve Google Maps? So suppose you have defined the goal as user engagement. How will you define the personas for Google Maps? Anybody wants to give it a try?
Probably on a high level, personas can be individuals as well as businesses, retail. I'm just saying.
From my side, the persona can be somebody which is looking at day-to-day things, and he is using Google Maps on a daily basis. A second persona is a event based. For example, if I am driving from a place to B, which might be a weekly or monthly phenomena, then there might be a different persona, something like that.
Yes, both of can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Both of you are right to some extent, but when you are writing a persona, like try to look at groups of people. Like suppose you can say that what do you so first you can look at what is the product like. So when we talk about Google Maps, then Google Maps is help it help us in reaching from one place to another place. So you start from a place and you reach a destination, right? And it can be used for commute, it can be used for finding restaurants, it can be used for finding businesses, as somebody rightly pointed out. It can be used by individuals, it can be used by businesses, it can be used by housewives, it can be used by college students. So then you can say, I would want to consider a persona. After you define 4 or 5 persona, then you define which persona you want to focus on. Uh, uh, and then you can go ahead with that. So basically, suppose I want to define a persona that people are looking for restaurants to eat in, and how can I improve people, because I can give a logic that people are trying. People don't have so much time to cook food these days, and for that example, Swiggy and Zomato are the market leaders, and I would want to use Google Maps in finding a better restaurant. And as in the previous session also, he- Siddhartha pointed out that basically we can start at improving the capabilities in a particular section if we have existing capabilities. So you can also look at that direction. So, like suppose I say that I want to improve the Google Maps for restaurants. That could be one of the scenarios where people are looking for restaurants to eat in, and I want to improve that experience and delight the customer. So you can focus on one section of a persona and then proceed with it. By whichever way you make the persona is your choice, but ideally you should make some 3-4 personas and then prioritize one of which you want to work for. That is the reason where the framework helps really, because it helps you to develop a solution from scratch instead of just jumping to a solution, and it gives a reasoning and base to your thinking. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So now for that matter, let's say you took Google Maps and you zeroed in on a persona that I talked about, that you want to improve people searching for restaurants on Google Map experience. Then how would you define, how would you work on the pain point and the user journey? You all can think for some time and then answer.
Yeah, one of the pain points will be when the time is limited. So we would, for a persona like a user who is search of restaurant, so it will look at the fastest route algorithm for that kind of persona. So that could be one pain point. Probably there, probably maps will be suggesting them a regular route. Maybe there's a lot of traffic. So some of the things like you can have those automatic algorithms like avoid traffic or look at detouring, because sometimes when you go on the route and it will find there's traffic, do you want a detour, right? So probably we can automate that on the Google Maps for such a persona and try to work on a solution to implement that.
Okay, good try. Anybody wants to give it another try?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, so the question is that I have identified a persona, people looking for restaurants on Google Maps, and I want to improve their user experience on Google Maps. So, how would you define their pain points and user journey? Like, can you talk about their pain points and user journey?
So one thing I can think of is when I'm searching for example, Paradise biryani. Okay, so probably I can show them the reviews. Okay, or the star marks or the similar restaurants which are around in and around, and then if it is not that restaurant, probably he might go to other. So, because sometimes we only search to the destination and we reach there, and after that uh, we will not be satisfied. So though you have made a decision in your mind to reach that destination, but still Google can improvise or change the mind to the alternatives. That thing that can be possible.
No, very good answer, Vivek. So that is one way. I think somebody else wanted to add. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it can show the availability of table or availability of a particular dish in the restaurant. So the crowd, I mean the crowd in the restaurant, like how good is it good to go now at that time or not?
Okay, so I think we are on the fine line of moving into solutions. So basically, when you say talking about these user needs and the user journey, then I would talk about that. First, I would talk about that. What are the aspirations of the user? Like as a user, I want a quick decision, complete information, and I want some reviews from my friends and family, or I want some reviews by strangers that make me make my decision of visiting a restaurant go ahead with it. So instead of just saying, because what you suggested is kind of a solution that what happens is that you show that how busy the restaurant is. So you need to talk about the needs and the user journey first. So basically, somebody, if you look at the Google Maps, the user journey is that I am looking for a restaurant. I search on Google Maps and I get the nearby restaurant, and I get around 5 or 6 results or 10 results, and how I can get better information about these restaurants, and how I can verify the authenticity of the restaurant in terms of taste, in terms of crowd management, in terms of availability of dishes and all. And also I can look at that a restaurant, if it really exists at that place or not, because sometimes what happens that you go to a restaurant and the position, and then you find out that it's an old pin and the address has been changed to some other place. So these are few pain points that you can talk about, and you can look at the whole journey. So, and talking about the journey also makes it clear in your head that what are you focusing on. So, like suppose I want to design a fire alarm for deaf. So, what is my user journey? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, because my question is related to what the Google Maps. That's why I interrupt you. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So one doubt came to my mind that is it not that we are missing the objective of Google Maps? If we are giving everything on the maps, is it then there is no difference between Google search and Google Map search? I suppose the objective of Google Map is to take a person from point A to point B, or from a person to home to the restaurant. This is my doubt actually.
Basically, Gaurav, there are two approaches to it. So one is that Google Maps is an already existing product, and they have done a phenomenal job on improving maps. There are bugs, but then when you approach a problem, then you should look at what else can be done on a product.
Okay.
And because if I look at the function of, and I'm looking at the personas specifically, if I, so I am, so when I'm looking at people visiting restaurants, I'm also saying whether the restaurant does not exist there or not. That is something that is an existing problem. And I am trying to look at from a persona perspective. That is why I'm inching towards reviews and making a decision, because I'm thinking from a persona perspective, and I'm saying that from a persona perspective, there are some things that can be improved.
Okay.
And when you take a persona specifically, then you look at the pain points of the persona. So that might lead to certain other product augmentation, but that is fairly okay, right? Because Uber also ventured into Uber Eats, right? You can say that it's a technology company and it's a transportation company. Why did it move into Uber Eats? So, and when we say user engagement, so if I want to engage people who are looking for restaurant, then I would want to give them whole information there at the same go.
Okay. Thanks.
Welcome.
And one other example is the WhatsApp, right? So WhatsApp payment is something that was launched last year. So they are a P2P communication software, right? But we know payments can now happen between phone numbers, which WhatsApp has. So that is some sort of a augmentation for a payment system in WhatsApp, from communication to payment.
Thanks, Nitin. Yeah, so that is also a good example. And Paytm expanded into Paytm Mall, and then you can reason that there is already existing market in Amazon and Flipkart. Why did they expand into Paytm Mall or hyperlocal? So yeah. Okay, so somebody has more questions or want to give it a try to basically looking at what could be the solutions to improve the experience, because we talked about personas, we zeroed in on a persona, we talked about user journey, we talked about pain points. After we define the personas, we can close this question at least. After we define the solutions, we can close this question at least. Yeah. No one wants to give it a try.
This is for the fourth one.
No, we are still on Google Maps. We want to define the solutions to Google Map now. We have talked about persona. We have zeroed in on a persona. We have looked at the user journey. We have talked about pain points. And now I should want to summarize with the help of solutions.
Okay. So we can, from my side, we can add one point here that in Google Maps, if we incorporate the piece of engagement, for example, if a person is looking for a mall and Google Map can show that, okay, there is a ABC mall 1.5 kilometers and there is a singing activity is going on. So there might be a chance that the decision taken by a person to use Google Map to reach that mall will be somewhat more as compared to, because he has got some engagement activity.
Okay, that was very innovative. Thanks for that.
Talking about the solution, right, Mona Lisa? So I don't know who's the gentleman who said, but one of the thing was the reviews and ratings and reviews and things, right? So probably as a solution, if you are on the route, right? So the assistant can ask, do you want to, while you are behind the wheel, you can ask, do you want to check the availability or the ratings or the recent reviews? So then it could be like a voice assist thing, right? You can say yes or no, and then you can listen to what are the feedbacks. And then that's the solution, right? So on the map itself. So anyway, you are interacting with the voice assistant. So you can hear while on the drive, like what are the ratings and what people talk about that restaurant and things like that.
Okay. Okay, so so these all solutions are good. What I want to the crowd to understand is that basically, when you are a product manager, essentially you are expected to also look at technology innovations and come up with something which is bigger in vision and can something that is not uh, present now. That way you can showcase your creativity and come up with a novel solution. Like suppose we have can somebody want to take a try at it before I give the answer? So the question is that you have no technology restraints and you can come up with an innovative solution to for the people looking for restaurants, and you don't have that implementation complexity trade-off, and you can think creatively about it.
Sure.
So one innovative solution which comes to into my mind, that if I'm looking for a restaurant nearby, then this Google Map can suggest me a particular restaurant with that your favorite dish ordered, and say rasgulla is my favorite sweet, and which I ordered last time with some X restaurant, but they quoted that this Z restaurant has a better taste of rasgulla. So why not you try?
Yeah, that is something what I was looking at for an innovative solution. So now with all the personal assistant available, you have the history of the user and you can make his life very easy. And you can even wow the user with the kind of predictable history based decisions that you take while like uh, like the user wants to go on, say, a romantic candlelight dinner with his girlfriend, and then you book the restaurant, make all the arrangement, you just tell the voice assistant that you want a destination booked, and you want at this time, and everything can be done, and everything could be based on the historical insights.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is how you should start thinking in terms of product, because your aim as a product manager is to use technology. So if you will read about technology trends and what is trending, how ML can be used, how AI can be used, you would come to a better answer.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
But Mona Lisa, for a non-tech product manager, okay, I understood the imagination part, but how the next steps means for non-tech product managers?
So basically, as in the second session, Siddharth said, right, that you have to focus on the why and the what and not the how. But you should know what can be implemented with the help of the technology. So at least till the capability level, you should start thinking. And even if you are a non-tech product manager, you are supposed to work with the engineering team, and you would be it would be good if you know the tech stack and the technical details a bit, because then you can also have an intelligent conversation with the engineering as well. So it is always good to know about technological trends, and that described about monoliths and microservices. So that is that is something that is technical, but then as a product manager, knowing about the trade-off and why such an technology is helpful is more appreciated. So I would suggest, even if you are a non-technical product manager, if you are working on a technical product, so it is advisable to know about technology.
Okay, thanks.
But don't get lost in technology, just understand technology. Anybody has more questions?
I have a broad question. It might be off the topic, so let me know. How to not get into analysis paralysis?
Good question, very good question. So basically, analysis paralysis happens more with when you are dealing with, say, analytics and data kind of a thing. But when you are thinking from the user perspective and when you are thinking from the customer perspective, when you are talking about the pain points, analysis paralysis doesn't apply there. At least I'm not aware of that it applies to learning more about the customer, its pain points, because that is the fundamental, and that is something a product manager should always be doing, that analyzing products, looking at a user, his journey, his sentiments, and his pain points. So the product manager is the customer advocate, and it is expected out of him to be able to step into the customer's shoes and understand the whole scenario. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I get the idea to some extent. I was kind of thinking on the lines where we have a product, we are working on day-to-day sprint cycles, and in case we want to think of like reinventing the wheel, that's why just that. But anyway, thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Mona Lisa. I think we are short on time. We can wrap the session now, if that's everybody's question is answered now. So
yeah, sure, Priyanka.
I have one question. I want to know, could you recommend some reading resources for non-technical PMs?
Yes. Yeah. I can tell you some reading resources. Basically, for tech news, you can look at TechCrunch, Mashable, and Hacker News. And then you can also get a lot of resources on medium.com. And you can look at svpg.com. But on the whole, if you refer to medium.com and one or two tech news platform, that would be very helpful. High scalability is also recommended for tech info. Yeah, okay. That's my side.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. So I think it's now time to wrap the session. And I would like to thank Siddharth and Mona Lisa for taking out time today to conduct this insightful masterclass sessions for pragmatic leaders. And thank you all for joining us today. And special thanks to all of you who stayed till the very end. I'm sure everybody must have got some concrete takeaways today. And guys, we'll be announcing some more masterclass series in November. So just keep an eye. We will keep you posted. And if you haven't joined the Slack channel, you can join our Slack channel where you can network with product managers and get help whenever you need it. I'll send you a follow-up email. You can find the link to join our Slack channel there. Until then, have a wonderful evening and stay safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Priyanka.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Priyanka.